Good evening, America. Rabbi Block here in the nation's capital. I usually start talking about the weather, other extraneous things, waiting for people to join. However, please, if you have questions, what questions you have about Judaism, the state of Israel, though remember, I'm an American citizen, I'm not an Israeli. And yes, you can ask a hard question. What is it? I'm waiting for to type in a question. No, I am not familiar with Slavoj Zizek. No, doesn't. I have no idea. Now, Judaism has never looked down, attacked, condemned non-believers. There was something called the Golden Age when Judaism was under Islamic rule, when Europe was plagued by the church. The Jews found a haven under Islam, and when the Crusades started and Islam was pushed, the Jews went with Islam. So a lot of what we're watching now, don't make the mistake of thinking it has something to do with the religion. It's purely politics, manipulation, disinformation. That seems to be a word that's very common right now. That the Golden Age, when Judaism and Islam both they profited from each other. And that's why it's called the Golden Age in Judaism. It wasn't until politics, politics has a way of ruining schools, governments, bowling leagues. When people start getting involved with agendas and using the institutions for their own ends, that's what we begin to see a problem. Judaism has always gotten along with Islam, and we've never looked down on Islam. Islam, if you want to call it a brother religion, a sister religion, lots of terms, we share a more in common than dissimilarities. Now, a neat question about the values of Zionism. Unfortunately, the Reform movement in Judaism embraced the state of Israel, not Zionism, but the state of Israel, and made the supporting Israel a core value. In the last 10 years, we've seen many of us objecting strenuously. Judaism is not about the state of Israel. Judaism is a religion. Israel is a country. And Israel, as a country, needs to do what a country needs to do to survive. Ukraine, fighting Russia. Afghanistan, Pakistan are now at war. If we go around the globe, we find that countries do many, many things that are not consistent with the religions of their own people or the religions they profess. Right back it comes to the politics. Nasty business. So Judaism and Zionism are not equal. Zionism was a political movement, started in about 1850, I believe, by a journalist who coined the term Zionist. And it became a political movement. The political Zionist movement pushed out those of us who were spiritual, social Zionists, and pushed out anyone that didn't see their agenda. No, that's politics. And so now the state of Israel is going to survive and do what it needs to do to survive as a country. What I don't want any of us to do is equate Zionism with Judaism. Let's keep them separate. Now, Gaza, Israel had control and turned it over to make it a separate place, a separate country. And instead of it prospering, setting up trade agreements with Egypt and Israel, it became a base for Hamas to attack Israel. But that wasn't what was envisioned when Israel pulled out of Gaza and it became a country. No, let's not even use the term underdog or revolutionary. Let's stop for a minute and look at what's going on. Gaza was supposed to be a showplace, a country with relationships and trade with Israel and Egypt. It's not what happened. It became a vassal state of Iran. We're back to politics again, aren't we? Hamas is funded, controlled by Iran. And it's promoting Iran's policies. It's not looking out for Palestinians. The Hamas doesn't care about Palestinians. If they did, they wouldn't put missiles in hospitals and schools. They wouldn't set up command centers. They wouldn't put the population in danger. And right now, Hamas is killing people in Gaza who aren't supporting them. So they're not. Hamas is not for Palestine. It's a tool of Iran. And Iran doesn't care about its own citizens. They have murdered, massacred, and killed thousands of their own women, children, and men. Read the history. Read it. And you'll see that Iran is using, proxies? And they're using a propaganda machine to get us to think that Hamas are good, stable revolutionaries trying to fight for freedom. And they're not. All we have to do is look at their actions, and their actions right now. And their actions up till now. What does Judaism say about staying motivated during tough times? One needs to develop a relationship with the One. I would say God, but too many of us have a very narrow or even a one definition of God. No one has a monopoly on the definition of God. That's why I like to use the One or higher power, something that gets us away from the idea that God is an old man in the sky who punishes or who rewards. That's not supported in the world. Just not supported. God is a power, a force, an entity outside ourselves. We are not the center of the universe. We are not the sum total of everything. And so in terms of being motivated during tough times, we need to work on our relationship with the One, meaning we are not the center of the universe. We are not the sum total. We're not in control. And so how do we do that? Organized religion has disappointed a lot of us. Organized religion has focused too much on ritual, on doing this but not that, sitting this way, not that way, praying this way, not that way. And I would suggest my book, How to Be Jewish in 30 Seconds, regardless of whether you're Jewish or not. The book focuses on Judaism, but what I talk about is relationship with God and the picayune nature of many of our organized religions, and the focus on ritual. Now, many of you asked to join. Not a problem. rabbiblock@hotmail.com. Send me an email. We'll meet in my Zoom room. We'll talk about how we'll co-host together. We'll talk about questions and answers and how to respect each other. Not a problem. I guarantee you email me, you meet with me, we'll be together next Wednesday. Guarantee it. You just have to contact me. But not shooting stuff, not throwing stuff, not saying you want to come. If you're serious about coming on, contact me. I want to have someone to talk with. Have another opinion. In fact, my YouTube channel, The Rabbi and I, the I is Joe Sutliff, who did the cartoons in our book. We're looking into a call-in show. The problem here with TikTok is you're writing things, and it doesn't make it simple, and even letting people, that's not the way you do a call-in. So we're thinking of YouTube. So keep your eyes and ears open. I will announce it. And we're hoping that very shortly we'll have our own call-in show. What does Judaism say about how to know who are good friends and who make good friends? In times of good, in times of aggravation, in times of bad, a friend is someone who we can talk to. This is Jewish teachings. A friend is someone who isn't looking out for their interests and willing to sacrifice yours for their interest. And that's a key we have to watch for. Because too often here on TikTok, people, where am I from? I'm a Bostonian. People here on TikTok many times, they don't want to be friends. They want to use or figure out how they can use me or someone else to get to their goals, to get to their ends. That's very nice. In fact, Martin Buber talked about I-thou relationships, thou meaning you, I-you relationships, and I-it relationships. Neat way to look at the universe. There's nothing wrong with either one. Each one has a place. An I-thou relationship, an I-you relationship, is where we meet and we exchange and we treat each other not as objects, not as a goal, not to get something, but as a fellow human being. Now, an I-it relationship, we think of it as negative, but Buber didn't have it mean that. No negative connotation to the it. It just means it's not personal. When I go into the supermarket, I say hello to who's ever at the register. I'm polite. They're polite to me. But Buber considers that an I-it relationship because it's not human to human. It's functional. I'm sorry he used the word I-it because we always think of it as an object or bad. No, functional. So there are functional relationships. The cashier has to see so many people. He's on a time schedule. They clock him, how long it takes to get someone through the line. So for me to kibitz with them and take up time would hurt them. So it's not an I-you relationship. When we talk about friends, that's an I-you relationship. No hidden agenda, not being used for anything. What Buber defined as an I-it was it's functional, it's used for something. At one time we had tellers in banks. Now I use cashiers in the supermarket, and the self-checks are starting to disappear. The business thought it was a great idea, and they've discovered it wasn't such a good idea. So they're pulling back on that. But anytime we have contact with someone that's functional, Buber said that's fine. That's not friends. According to Judaism, what are some qualities that a man can have that'll help find a wife? Be a mensch. In Yiddish, mensch means a person, a human. A mensch is someone who respects other people, who doesn't put other people down, who doesn't make snide remarks, who doesn't abuse, who doesn't own, and who doesn't think they're in charge of everyone. That's a mensch. You give to charity. You're respectful of everyone. You don't have to be friends with everyone. That's what Buber pointed out with functionality. We can have relationships with each other and not be close friends or good friends. However, we can be respectful. The other thing about getting married and having a partner is to respect yourself. Be gainfully employed. Do some things in the community, not just for yourself. Volunteer for the Volunteer Fire Company. Give blood. There's thousands of organizations, churches, synagogues. Everyone's looking for volunteers. That would be another piece to be a mensch. It means when given the choice, you do the right thing. You don't take advantage of people. You don't look at everything as a deal. You know, when you use the word deal, you're thinking of money. That's what a deal is. Diplomacy is very different from making a deal. Making a deal, being a Shabbos Goy, good stories. In Orthodox Judaism, remember, I'm not, since you can't do any manner of work, a non-Jew can do things. Now, you can't directly ask them. You'd have to have an agreement that on the Sabbath, Friday night at sundown, till Saturday night at sundown, they would come by a couple of times and turn lights on, turn lights off, start a stove. They would do different things. It's a legal fiction that I don't approve of. It's a way around Orthodox Jews saying, I'm not doing the work. I'm not doing anything. I have somebody who's doing it voluntarily. One of the Catholic priests I worked with in the hospital, he made, when he was a young man, he made not a living, but he made good money being a Shabbos Goy. He had several families that paid him, made arrangements, and he had a certain assignments. He would come by at specific times and do things for them. Because according to Orthodox Judaism, you have to rest on the Sabbath, and you can't do any of the 39 categories of work. Don't think of work as what you and I think of work. It's in the Talmud. It's these categories. For me, it's a legal fiction, and I think it's wrong. Because you found a way to get around the idea of a day of rest. And that's because the rules are strangulating. And the rules are ridiculous. God didn't ordain it. All God said was, take one day a week, take the Sabbath, keep it holy, and rest. Don't do your regular work. Go for walks, go to the park, go to a drive, go to the movie, do something that you don't normally do during the week. But Orthodox Judaism, as with many things, froze it, made it very sterile and strict. So maybe Goy is not a derogatory word. Israel is referred to as Goy, a nation. Goy means nation. Or person. So a Shabbos Goy is a person that does these activities on the Sabbath, so an Orthodox Jew doesn't have to do them and can think that they're being a good Jew because they're paying someone to get around the law. It's almost like bribing the police officer so he doesn't give you a ticket. Oh, I wasn't doing that, officer. Staying focused, eye on the prize. Someone asked me, how you stay on focus? Study. What is your goal? Keep your eye on the prize. In the Olympics, the individuals in the Olympics didn't get there because they went to the gym once a month and spent the rest of the time drinking beer and eating cookies. They focused on the skills they needed and did the training to enhance those skills. Yeah, someone said they struggle and study for school. What is your goal? Is your goal a degree? Is your goal to pass this one class? Is your goal to acquire knowledge? Eye on the prize is my answer to that person. to user, and there's lots of numbers after it, user 590227. Focus on your goal. Are you doing it to please someone else? Are you doing it because you think you should? Stop for a minute and see, how does it function for you? How is it working for you? What is your goal? If your goal is to get ahead, then we need school. We need classes we're not interested in. We have teachers that aren't very good. In fact, teachers that are just the opposite. However, if we keep our eye on the prize, we will make it. Yeah, the Jews did great in the Ottoman Empire. The Jews have always done great under Islam, up until much later when it became politics. And politics began to get mixed. That's why the founding fathers wanted to separate religion from the state here in the United States. They recognized, watching England and France, Germany, other places, when religion and the state become enmeshed, nobody succeeds. It's always been a disaster. Always been. Separation of church and state is the only way that a country can survive. If you look at Iran and look at what they did, Iran massacred thousands of their own people. I was listening to some Iranians who talked about what the government, they watched women and men being shot at point blank range. People being shot who protested, who stood in the streets. So you're dealing with a country ruled by a religion. And if we look at Afghanistan and the way they treat women, and where's that gotten them? Any place that has made the religion the politics of the country, the Spanish Inquisition. We've seen this in Europe. We've seen this in South America. We saw it among the Aztecs. The examples out there are unlimited. That it doesn't have a good ending, and it's not good for the population. And unfortunately, too many of my, too many clergy are using religion to leverage people for their own control. Look at the mega churches. Where should a pastor have several jet planes, a huge house, expensive cars? What would Jesus say if Jesus saw that per pastor and someone said, "Oh, Jesus, that pastor's preaching in your name"? What do you think Jesus would say? "Oh, yeah, that's a good thing." What did Jesus teach? A rich person has as much chance of getting into heaven as a camel has of going through the eye of a needle. So think of those mega churches. I think of Texas and Louisiana and other places where they have millions. And they spend it on stuff. And they're using the religion to control people. And they're holding out promises that they can't deliver to get stuff. It's an abuse. But we don't want to judge all clergy. There are hundreds of clergy across the country who have a small church and have a job, and who teach the word, and who live Jesus. None of the mega churches, none of their pastors live Jesus. None of them do. But people throw their money at them. I wouldn't object if you threw money at me. I'm open. Why would I object? That's not why I do this. I'm not making you promises. I'm not telling you things that aren't true. I'm not controlling you. I'm a teacher. And I teach. And what I do, I read and listen to Al Jazeera. the Wall Street Journal, the Washington Post, USA Today, Reuters, Associated Press, Jewish Telegraph Agency, Jerusalem Times. There's a Hindu paper. I don't remember the name of it. I have sometimes some trouble because a lot of it is Indian politics that I'm not that familiar with. I'm learning. That's my goal, to understand how these news are reporting the war with Iran, how they're reporting what's going on in Gaza, how they're reporting what's going on in Ukraine. That's why I check Al Jazeera a couple of times a day. The Washington Post, I'll read it in the morning. USA Today, read in the morning. Associated Press, AP, and Reuters, I check it a couple of times during the day. Jewish Telegraph Agency, Jerusalem Post. I kind of look at those and particularly when I hear something. I like Sky News. I watch Sky News on my computer. What's neat is to hear the British view, to hear their newscasters. That's why I subscribe to the Hindu newspaper, to hear their view. And the goal, by listening to a lot of different places, one can tease out, what may or may not be happening. And one can tease out the disinformation. And one can tease out the propaganda that they're pushing on us. And that thoughts on globalism, you don't have to define globalism. I believe we're all on the planet Earth. The planet Earth is, if you like, a spaceship. We're all in this together. And the only way we're going to survive is to cooperate with each other. We don't have to all be the same. We don't have to all speak the same language. We don't have to all watch the same TV shows. No, it's not about us being all identical. And it's not about making villains out of other people. If humankind is going to survive, then we're going to have to recognize other human beings, other cultures, other thought patterns, and sit with diplomacy. Not make a deal. Deal is, I want to make money, which means you're going to lose money. No deals. It's about politics, cooperation, diplomacy. How can we all benefit from the resources on the planet? You have some things that I need. I have some things you need. Commerce. How can we work with commerce? And if we look at the history of our planet, we will see that empires came and went. Well, our time is up. I hope you'll watch me on The Rabbi and I, listen to my podcast, The Wisdom of Rabbi Block, and I hope you'll pick up a copy of my book with its cartoons, How to Be Jewish in 30 Seconds. So, thank you all this evening. Have a good weekend and be safe.